Welcome back to the Zachrilege cast. Jeremiah Traeger, aka the Prophet, aka Jerb the Humanist. Are there any other nicknames that I've missed out on?
No. But the prophet died. The prophet has since gone away.
Was there like an official death of the Prophet? Because I know that was kind of your character on a show that we won't mention until we mention it. But that was a bit of a persona, and then
it was mostly a way to stay anonymous. Because I didn't mind people hearing my full name on air. I just didn't want to be Googleable. Let's see. But I think after the election, I started actually posting content to my Facebook profile instead of just this page that almost nobody followed. And I was like, well, screw this. I'm just gonna retire my page. The page is still up, but I don't see any reason to delete that. But yeah. I'm my new persona is Jerb the Humanist. I still don't mind my name being out there. I just like the channel to not be me, not be my name. So
got it. Yeah, it's like
yeah,
slightly off, sort of like mine is. And speaking of slightly off, drinking a coconut porter from Cherry Street Brewing, and I'm drinking out of the can because that's what I usually don't do, but I'm doing it tonight.
Oh,
but we're to go at it. We add a context. I think the former prophet respects the out of context because that's kind of how it all got started. I want to feel the blood drip down my jaws. I need new pants now.
Where's this from?
It's from a show you do.
Yeah, no.
An episode every 6 months. Yeah, that show.
Yeah. No, that is so out of context. I don't even remember it, but that's awesome. I love those ones. Those sound like very me. So yeah.
The problem is there are just too many, but I'm just gonna keep going and see how it goes. I don't like platforming bigots.
No, that one makes sense.
Fuckboy Smalley.
Fuckboy Smalley, definitely me.
Conversion therapy totally works.
Yes, I stand by that. That is science.
People who go to therapy are losers.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing I say is going to matter. We might as well end on that one.
Sounds good. Yeah, actually, all the titles of the SJW Circle Jerk, with a few exceptions, are just out of context quotes from the episode. And Ari usually has a batch, and Ari's like, pick your favorite, Jeremiah, and I pick my favorite, and that one becomes the title of the SJW Circle Jerk. So
yeah, when it comes out of context quotes, it's either like the guest really, really gets it, or the guest is like, oh God, I'm gonna die. What is this thing? So yeah, I figured you'd be on the other side of it. Did want to say a belated happy Hedgehog Father's Day, and I see the likeness.
Yep. Thank you. Yeah. I'm a very happy father. I did not bring the hedgehog this time, so I'm sorry to say. But
it's like another out of context quote. We'll leave that for a minute. So why, oh why, did you decide not just to do a show, but to do a YouTube show? Have you seen #skeptic YouTube?
Yeah. It's because I hate myself. There's actually quite a few reasons why this made sense to me. First off, I started coming up with content that Ari didn't necessarily want to discuss with me, or that they couldn't really come up with a way to contribute. I also wanted to create content that had a little more shareability and a bit more way to win over people. And YouTube videos, at least if they're short, have this shareability that other media don't have. Like you can share a blog post, and when you share blog posts are still good with shareability. So but it still has this thing where if you share a blog post, people are very easily able to just scan through the blog post and cherry pick and take things out what they want. With a YouTube video, there's no control F. Like, you're almost forced to watch the content all the way through, or you just watch it a little bit until you decide it's not for you, and then you turn it off. But still, it has that shareability. And podcasts don't really have that either. They're, at least a lot of like skeptic atheism podcasts, they're like, 30 minutes or an hour long. And if you're completely unfamiliar with the content, usually people don't want to set aside that amount of time. And the reason I want it to be shareable is, for the last point, is like, I'm looking for more ways to de-radicalize edgelord internet, like, to whatever extent that I can. And I think, as someone who fits a lot of the metrics for what people expect edgelord internetery to be, like, I fit a lot of the demographics. I'm a nerdy white male with a lot of masculine features, though not too many. There's a sense in which I can be more of a role model and speak to disaffected young men in a way that a lot of social justice discourse, for good or bad reasons, struggles to do.
Yeah, that's something I didn't think about with YouTube. I mean, obviously, most interviews I do, used to be an hour, now it's like 45 minutes. That is, you have to sit in for a little bit. You got to, get a couple beers to make it through that. But to have the shorter content, I've seen videos that are like 2 minutes long. Mm-hmm. They're produced to the gills sometimes. And that's probably good to have stuff. I don't know. I think you're in like the 10 to 20 minute range. I guess it depends on what you have.
Yeah.
How much content so far? I've seen a couple of videos.
Yeah. So now I think I have 5 more or less video, maybe 6, 5.5. Call it 5.5. My first video is weird. Video essays on some of my. It's basically a blog post in visual medium form. And that's kind of by accident, because when I write blog posts, I tend to be very thorough. And so by the time I did all the editing and all the rearranging, I had 20-minute long videos, and I'm like, gonna see if I can cut it down. My most recent one, I got to 12 minutes, but I'm just so thorough. And that was one on thermodynamics. I'm also creating science communication content because I'm interested in science communication, and that video is on entropy, which I've explained in other media, but I wanted to see if I can create a visual medium that people could understand regularly. And in that video, you can see me say, well, I don't want this video to get too long, and it still manages to get over the 12-minute mark. So I guess conciseness is still a thing I'm working on, but as you can see by the length of my bumbling answers.
Can I give a one-word review to the entropy video?
Sure.
Chaos!
Chaos!
I can't do the Jordan Peterson accent.
It's just, you have to talk like Kermit the Frog and sound...
There's a Canadian accent, but I don't know. It's like when somebody becomes the center-right, whatever YouTube person, first of all, you can't say any like 3 things true in a row, and then you have to become like a cartoon version of yourself, which people seem to latch on to. So how did you create your like persona of Jerb the humanist, or did you just say, well, I don't want to use my official name.
Yeah, it's weird. I think there's a real problem with our discourse, and trying to frame a persona on the internet around that can be difficult. Because the way a lot of internet figures have developed their persona, at least in edgelord internet YouTube skepticism, things like that, they want to bill themselves as these purely rational, highly critical thinkers. But they don't do it in a way that, say, you would in academia, in science, where people are actively seeking out the truth, and people still have flaws, but for the most part, people's goals in science are to determine the truth, and in academia, have a greater understanding of the world. When YouTubers are creating their persona, they're becoming the monster they're trying to fight. They're against SJWs who are screeching. They say they don't have good evidence or use good arguments or anything. But they also, the edgelord YouTube is snarky and shouting and completely uncharitable. The takedown video format is just taking little bits, whatever they can use, to try and spin what the other person is saying and create their own narrative, and they'll get completely blown out of proportion in minutes. And the way I'm trying to not be that, but there's kind of a problem in there, in that persona is kind of what gets clicks and sells because it's entertaining. Like, people are in it for the entertainment business. So I think what I need to do is to create some sort of angry SJWE rant, maybe with some factual errors all over the place, and just like let people dunk on me all across the internet for about a week, and then maybe I'll get more of a following that way. I'm trying to see how that works out. But
yeah, the truth is you almost can't take anything literally, like, because there are characters that exist that are like, oh, they say they're a Christian, but they're really making fun of Christians, or I'm an SJW, but I'm making fun of them, or but there's this definite layer of meanness, because the attack video is never joking. It's very much like, not only is this person wrong, they're like a horrible human being. And it gets dirty. Like, you get in the mud and you get dirty no matter what you do if you get in this game. So good luck. Get some beard oil.
Yeah, I mean, and there are respectful critiques. I don't like the takedown format, no matter really who does that. I've seen leftist YouTubers do that, and even then I'm just kind of like, this is not really what I'm into. But when there are videos that, say, ContraPoints or Sean will do, and those seem less mean-spirited. They are actually addressing what the person is saying, and very calmly deconstructing the arguments that the other person's making. Now, there is something to be said about ContraPoints' earlier videos had a bit of that old-spirited, infighting element to them. They were slightly less respectful, but that might have also gotten her a following at the time. So, and again, like, it's almost as if to market yourself to the internet and get a ton of nihilists to actually listen to what you have to say, you have to be entertaining. And what's entertaining these days is just trying to dunk on a ton of people, like, and trying to make yourself look smart and make the other person look like a shithead or something. So there's a definite problem, and I don't know how to solve it.
So why do we need humanism, and how can you communicate humanism to people who want that kind of content, the takedown type content?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't have an answer for the takedown type content. Wait until I get takedown videos of me myself for that. But I think humanism is really important in that I think one of the things that religious communities have gotten right is the community element. And I think that is something that is sorely, sorely lacking in non-religious spaces. Um, Religious communities, whether or not they're founded on falsehoods, and sometimes, and a lot of the times they're not in the case of UU churches, regardless of what they do, they are able to do positive change just by organizing around a group of people with shared belief systems. And a lot of people will say, well, atheism isn't a belief system. Atheism only means you don't believe in God. And I'm like, cool. I'm not talking about just atheism. I'm talking about a shared belief in creating the betterment of human civilization, one that uses compassion and empathy in their methods to help change the world, and one that organizes around a shared value of critical thinking and skepticism, which are evidence-based and can help us look at the world as it is and change it around it. And I think humanism has the potential to be a quote-unquote faith community that actually organizes for the better of society, and get people together for direct action, get people together for campaigns, get people together to tear down jail cells that are concentration camps for Mexican workers. I don't know. That organizing atheists is like herding cats, as the cliche goes. But whether or not atheism can actually, or whether or not humanists can put words into action, is still up in the air. But I think there's potential there, So
You still believe. That's impressive.
There is a progressive contingent of humanists, and you see it every time you go to a con. Like, the internet is horrible, but when you meet with atheists at conferences IRL, unless you're in Milwaukee, you get a ton of people who have a shared belief in positive change in the world. And it's almost like a parallel. In fact, it is a parallel with other belief systems, except on the whole, it is a bit more progressive. Like, when I went to a march after Charlottesville in Denver, there were a ton of faith communities there, and it should go without saying that I don't agree with their metaphysical claims, but there were Baptists there and Methodists there, and I think those, well, maybe not as much the Methodists, but like, say, Baptists, I have a lot of problems with the Baptist church as a whole, but they were still a group of organized members looking to specifically combat white supremacy, as opposed to the rest of the Baptist church across the nation, that's shrugging its shoulders and basically trying to enforce white supremacy. But atheists on a whole do tend to be more progressive, so the fact pattern is different, and you do see groups of people who feel more strongly about creating positive change, and it's not like the church where it's mostly conservative and slightly progressive. It's like the opposite. In real life, you get mostly progressive, and then a group of shitheads who still aren't necessarily mainstream conservatives. They might just be centrist assholes, which is still not good, but it's better. I don't know if you agree with that, but it makes sense to me.
It does tend to get more, you feel more optimistic about the world when you get to meet people in person. And for some reason, I tend to do that at conferences that aren't where I live, and I don't do it as much here. So you do that more often. But yeah, going to like NanoCon or going to ReasonCon was definitely like you had that warmth, that warm feeling, you know, whether it was true or not, for a few weeks, and we definitely need that. Now, the last time I talked to you, it was like episode 21. We were both babies. Well, you were. And since then, you have launched another show, you and Ari Stillman, SJW Circle Jerk. Now, it started in 2016 when we were all young and innocent. 2 years ago. That's right. That's how long it seems. You're really on a fast pace, 30 episodes in like 2 years. Why did the two of you say, let's do a show?
Yeah. Much like I'm creating content that doesn't fit into the SJW Circle Jerk, the SJW Circle Jerk was a spinoff for content that didn't necessarily fit into No Religion Required or The Gaytheist. Not that Callie didn't want to describe some of the things we talked about on the SJW Circle Jerk, but Ari doesn't want to run the Gaytheist Manifesto. It's not Ari's show. It's mostly Callie's show, and Callie's the co-host, which is fine. And I think a lot of Ari's philosophy is driving it, because Ari just wants to put out a show whenever they feel like it. No bells and whistles, no commitment whatsoever. And it shows, because we don't regularly put out episodes, because Ari doesn't really care to... It's just a show for its own sake. And I don't think Ari has any ambitions about putting out content like that. I do kind of feel like I want my work to have more impact, which is another sort of reason why I found the YouTube channel, and I have a regular schedule for that. But Ari and I do have opinions on social justice matters that we want to get out there, and I even though we tell people not to listen, don't listen to the SJW Circle Jerk because it's terrible. Apparently, a ton of people do want to listen whenever we put out an episode, and maybe they're shitheads who don't know a good podcast from a bad one, but it's there, you know.
Yeah, like your master of reverse psychology. Don't listen to the show.
See,
whereas I like sometimes listen to the show, and other times, yeah, you don't know that I exist. That kind of thing. But I think skits, and you have like music and shit. So you put a little bit into it.
I make all the music for the SJW Circle Jerk.
Shocker.
And, yeah. Yeah, Ari does all the editing because Ari wants complete control. Like I'm the type of person who actually wants to put in effort, and I don't want to put in subpar effort to create my material. It may not be as good as it could be, but that's due to my skill level limitations rather than a lack of effort. And Ari just wants to put out an episode. Though I will say the most recent one on service animals is one that Ari actively promoted. If you listen to the Gaytheist episode, Ari was like, our most recent episode is on service animals, and Ari loves service animals. And it gets into things like, you know, treating disabled people properly and how to properly treat an animal, and I find it very informative. So I think Ari is proud of that episode, but for the most part, it's not an ambitious podcast. It's just there to put out content.
Now, are you shooting to like take down the easiest, I guess, anti-SJW arguments, or are you occasionally going, oh, this side of SJW maybe a bit too much?
Yeah, I think it started out that that way, like saying, you know, being a little bit both sidesy. That definitely isn't the case after the after the election. And I don't know, usually the thought process is like, I'm like, Ari, we should talk about this topic, and Ari's like, no. And I'll be like, all right, let's talk about this topic, and Ari's like, no. And usually something will pop up, something that we want to discuss. It might actually be, sometimes it'll be something like a Matt Walsh article, and if you follow me, you know that Matt Walsh is like my hate crush. He's if you want to create a moral compass that that points in the best behavior to act, doing the exact opposite of Matt Walsh is about as good of a starting point as you can get, because he's just terrible. And a few times we've actually just read through his posts that he makes for the Daily Wire, and that's always just great content, because he's just a terrible writer and he uses terrible arguments. And I don't think he's explicitly anti-SJW, because he's not too wrapped up in internet culture. He's still within the realm of mainstream religious right-wing culture. So that gives us, I guess, a little bit of unique spin. I don't know too much about any takedowns we've made recently. We had a skit a couple times ago that was directed at a small atheist figure, but we're not. I don't think we're necessarily trying to stir shit to get fans. If we're stirring shit, that's just what we're doing. So.
And do you have any deep feelings about the term itself, since it's part of your show title? Like, do you have a reaction when you hear somebody use it or see it? Like
SJW?
Yeah.
Yeah, so actually it's funny. Ari and I have different perspectives on this. Ari actively defines themselves as a social justice warrior. That's part of their persona. And that's fine. I think their philosophy is like, sure, you call me a social justice warrior, I'm a social justice warrior. I'm taking up these causes. I care about these things. Let's go. Let's show people that there are normal people who hold these values and become visible, much like coming out of the closet is supposed to do for say atheists or for LGBTQ people. I myself don't actively call myself an SJW. Sometimes I will, just when I'm trying to be edgy, you know, like like, oh yeah, I'm the regressive cuck soy boy SJW your mom warned you about. But it's still just such an arbitrary term. Like, a lot of people, it's like the Mott and Bailey. Are you familiar with that? It's sort of like a logical fallacy where it's like, you know, you have a weak claim that is easy to defend, or a strong claim that's hard to defend. And the easy to defend claim is, some people take things too far. They'll dox people. They're rude. They don't want to have productive discourse, things like that. Maybe they want to shut down people that don't deserve to be shut down. And that is a very easy position to defend. And in fact, I agree with what I just said. The hard to defend thing is, you know, something like you're an SJW, or if you just so much as recognize something as basic as transgender people exist, or say the term Black Lives Matter, and somebody says, you're an SJW because of that. They're immediately lumping you into the easy claim category. And then when you challenge them on that, they retreat to the easy claim instead of like defending their actual position of they don't want to engage with you. They don't actively want to grapple with how white supremacy manifests in America. They don't actively want to give charity to a side that is looking to gain rights for marginalized groups. What they want to do is they just want to spin things the way they want and paint social justice warriors as poorly thought out radicals who don't know what the world is like. And it's much easier to call me an SJW to dismiss me on those grounds than to actually listen to me. So I don't really, to sum it up, I don't call myself an SJW, but if somebody calls me that, I'm like, sure. Now let's get to the issues or something like that, you know?
Yeah, I can act like a passive aggressive toddler. Like if somebody I can tell like doesn't like the term, then I'm like, sure, I'll take it. But yeah, it does seem to be a negative term, but it's almost like anti-progressive. You know, they say that if you're not a social justice warrior, then you're a status quo warrior.
Yep.
And the status quo for a lot of people is not so great.
No,
that's kind of the point.
Yeah, a lot of the arguments are just there is a lot of work put into justifying the system that we already have and why things don't need to change rather than introspection into any potential problems that could be in those systems or how we behave or how we treat people. And I think status quo warriorism is a very apt label for that kind of bending over backwards.
Because generally speaking, this is kind of like the way everything Trump has accused Hillary of, he's actually done. That every time someone calls someone an SJW, they're actually being an SJW, and generally speaking, worse than what is being said.
Right.
I want to talk to you about IRL in real life. See, when you first were in touch with Ari, you were living very, very far away, but now you're not. So how is this working where you actually get to see each other in this polyamorous situation you're in?
Oh, it's pretty great. So I'm at CU Boulder, and I was when I was first on your show. I'm still in the same living room. And Ari is now a psychology grad student at University of Colorado Springs, living with their nesting partner. And that works out great because, like, you know, on occasional weekends, we get to see each other. We get to visit, go around Boulder or the Springs. This past weekend was Pride, and Ari came up to Pride in Denver. I went down to Pride in Denver. It was a lot of fun. It's working out great. Also, you should probably talk to Ari about this, but the podcast Ari gets paid to produce, Reasonable Risk with Michael Schaefer. Michael happens to live, well, he lived in just outside of Denver. Now I think he lives in the Springs, but that gives us a lot of excuses to meet up too. So, no, it's great. We just, you know, we're not nesting. I don't see any reason to be nesting anytime soon. But it's a lot nicer being able to visit without flying across half the country.
Yeah, I would say that would be a lot better. Do you miss Myrtle?
Not touching that one. Myrtle is dead. Myrtle
and the Prophet had like a murder-suicide pact. Is that what happened?
Oh yeah, I actually don't know if Myrtle is dead. I wonder if she is. I don't I listen to Hope After Faith regularly, but well, not that regularly, but it's not one of my every week podcasts, which shouldn't reflect on Bobby and Ashley or Jerry. It's more of a reflection of the enormous plurality of podcasts that I'm trying to keep up with. But I do wonder if Myrtle's a character, and if not, I'll tell Ashley to get on that for Hope After Dark. You know,
it should be, but I don't know. It seemed like that was the great uncouple, I guess.
Yeah, no, it went great actually, and she came up when Eli came onto the show. That might have been one of my favorite No Religion Required episodes.
And he said that when she said Jew, it was like 3 syllables. Like,
oh my god! When you talk to Miss Ashley, all you need to do is take out syllables where they aren't there and put them in where they aren't. So if you listen to Jeremiah, it's like 2 syllables. and when you listen to GU, it's like, you know, I don't know exactly how you described it. I love those two. I love those two so much. So,
well, how's your studying going? Like, how much? First of all, what are you studying? Can we understand it? Is it possible? And is there an end date, or are you just school for life?
First of all, let's put some social justice discourse in there. When you ask,
that's right. You're at a college, like where they're So is it a Marxist?
Actually,
does that happen? Is that
yeah? It's Marxist chemical engineering.
Okay.
Where you have the proletarian biomolecules and the bourgeoisie transition metals. So
awesome.
I might consider asking a PhD student when they're done to be a quote-unquote microaggression, because no PhD student actually knows when they're going to be done until they schedule their thesis defense. That being said, I'm expected to defend maybe next spring, so maybe a little less than a year. We'll see how that goes. And I think I can explain some of my work. So what PhD students, at least in STEM, are doing, what I do actually is a job. It's literally my job. I haven't taken classes for over a year now. And I get a stipend. It is my job, and I get paid to research things, and I do it throughout the summer. Like, I get vacation time and everything. So don't think of it, even though I am a student, don't think of it like being a student. I'm actually just spending all my time doing research. And what I specifically am researching is looking at how DNA molecules interact with the solid-liquid interface. And that's interesting because I'm looking at underlying physics for how DNA behaves in certain environments. And even though I'm not actually working with biotechnology, it could potentially have useful implications for biotechnology, because a lot of things like biosensors, where you're trying to detect a certain DNA strand, rely on, say, like a chip, a type of surface, and you flow a solution of DNA across the chip to investigate what that solution actually contains, and that requires looking at how the molecules interact with the interface, how they move around, how they jump off that surface, how they get stuck onto that surface, and how they interact with anything else on that surface. So that's what I'm working at specifically.
So the key question is, when are you going to make Jurassic Park happen?
Oh, that's my favorite question. You're not the first person to ask about this.
I'm sure.
No,
I read the book.
No. Yeah, I've thought of going into my advisor's office and being like, okay, uh, uh, Dr. S. Okay, Dr. S, I have a new project proposal. Get this amber and extract the DNA and try and make dinosaurs. After which I would most likely be fired because I'm wasting his time.
Isn't a thesis? I mean, it's kind of like, I don't know if it's book length.
Yeah, I mean it's a very long report, but it's
right.
A lot of it's the ideas are more or less a lot of them are pre-written at that point, because what you're trying to do is collate the entirety of your work into a unified whole, and that work includes any papers you've published in the last 5 years or 4 years or 10 years of your tenure as a graduate student. So what you're actually doing is incorporating some papers that you've already written and creating a dissertation that you're able to defend in front of some other people with PhDs and also the public if they come and see your defense. So right now I'm working on my second first author publication, looking at how molecules search on the surface, how they absorb, and how they look around, and how they might find another molecule that's attached to the surface, and how those interactions behave. I already have a first author publication that happened that got published in Langmuir last September. So that was very exciting. And new steps for me is my second paper. So
that's a better publication than the one that published the conceptual penis?
Yeah. Oh, the conceptual penis journal did. There's a metric.
Can you imagine those two defending that, like in front of actual academics? That would be amazing.
Well, I've heard them defend it. They tried to defend it not just on Thomas Smith's show, but also on Very Bad Wizards, which is
that's the one I listened to. Yeah.
Yeah, Very Bad Wizards.
Include that in the notes.
They're good academics. And the thing is, there's a metric that academics use, and they definitely overuse it, but it's sort of a first pass approximation at how good a journal is, and it's based on how many people cite it, how many people read it. It's called the impact factor, and something like Science or Nature, which are two very good journals, they'll have impact factors of about 40. Things like JAMA or other medical journals will get something like 70 or 80, I think. The one I got in was 4, which still isn't bad. You get into less cited fields like psychology. Sometimes an impact factor of 2 is about the best you can hope for. The journal the conceptual penis was published in did not have an impact factor because it was so new and it was unnotable and unrated.
Different than 0, it's not even recognized, right?
Yeah, it's basically you can't even compare it. It's uncomparable to what I've been published in, and the reason that it was published in that journal was because Bogosian and James Lindsay, they tried to submit it to another journal that had like an impact factor of 0, which is like the worst impact factor score, and they got rejected from that, and that journal referred them to this other journal with no impact factor, and I don't know.
And they knew their audience, and their audience wouldn't care whether it mattered or not. People like Richard Dawkins was giving it love, and
that's kind of how it goes.
All about these days.
You get a following. It doesn't matter who. Like, you get a following, and you get people willing to defend you pretty far, and I've tried to avoid that. At this point, after Me Too and seeing a ton of my heroes and some people I thought I admired shift, I no longer really have anyone I would consider a hero, which is a good thing. I don't want people to defend me when I've done something wrong. I want to figure that out. So I actually very consciously put that in all my videos, saying very explicitly, I am not an authority on anything.
I'm going to get far on YouTube that way.
Yeah, I know.
Because most people don't say they're an authority, but they definitely act like it.
Right. Maybe by the time, maybe if I get my PhD next spring, I will be an authority on the interactions of DNA molecules at the solid-liquid interface, which is pretty cool. But I don't think I'll make any videos based on that. So
does that mean we refer to you as Dr. Prophet from now on?
Dr. Prophet, Dr. the Humanist, something like that.
Dr. Jerb.
Dr. I am.
But you gotta say it three. You got Dr. Jerb.
I am 100% down to be called Dr. Jerb. So, Hugh-Man, the first time we met up, he gave me a shirt, and I have it in my dresser there. I don't want to waste time pulling it out, but it says, "Not that kind of doctor." And I've had it in my drawer for about 2.5 years, I want to say. So I guess I'll pull it out when the time is right. So
I want to waste time pulling it out. There's another.
Yeah, don't take that one out of context. I'll pull it out when the time is right.
That's right. That's all. We all dream of that.
I just realized. Oh man, I just gave you another out of context quote. That's great.
As soon as 278 when you'll be on next.
Yeah.
If I live that long. So if you got the dream scenario and you were invited to talk at the Mythicist Milwaukee conference, what subject that you have no expertise on would you like to talk about?
Ooh. Assuming I could, I would probably I would try and stir shit at Mythicist Milwaukee.
No.
Assuming I was giving my own talk, I probably would not want to be on a panel at Mythicist Milwaukee because the way those things are set up now, they're just set up so somebody can get dunked on, and it is very one-sided. But if I had to pick a topic, I might do something very trollish, like something that I brought up earlier, like atheists need to create churches, something like that. And I think there's a bit of truth to that based on what I was saying earlier. Is like humanists need to gather together and create communities and mobilize, go to marches, create direct action, do what other progressive religious communities do, and create positive change. And I would defend that case. And I am almost certain, especially after seeing all the out of contextery that happened at last year's MythCon, I'm almost certain that whatever I said would be taken out of context, cut up into little pieces, spun out of control to fit the anti-SJW narrative. But it would get me notoriety, and I would stand behind. I would not say anything that I did not myself believe. So I don't. At this point, I'm not sure there's as such a thing as bad publicity, even if it's for a takedown. I think attention actually does just happen to get your ideas across better than, necessarily how good those ideas are. Otherwise, Donald Trump wouldn't have been elected. So I would do whatever I could to just get attention, even if it made me look like a complete dumbass in front of a ton of SJWs. As long as I'm being honest about trying to stir shit, and I'm being honest about what stances I believe in, then I don't care what they do to spin what I say out of context or out of control.
I don't know if any SJWs would be invited, but we'll see. I have a couple of female former guests on this show that are going to be there, and they're gung ho, and
yeah,
I don't know how it's going to go. I'm
fearing
the worst and hoping a small part of me is like there will be like this great takedown that will reverberate, but.
Yeah, there is a panel. So you've probably seen people making fun of this in our circles. What is the impact of intersectionality? And it's such a diverse podcast. It's such a diverse panel that it has all the authors of The Conceptual Penis on that panel. David Smalley is moderating it, and it's got another person I don't know. And I think they just announced that they're getting a non-binary person who accepted an invite onto that panel. So they finally found one social justice warrior. I don't know this person.
I think they were clearly looking for somebody kind of on the left, but probably just one. I think it was Music Man Mike _.
That was it.
And I followed them. I think them's correct on Twitter, and it's that's someone on the progressive side.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's just so much. That's one conference that they will listen to the whims of the masses and be like, okay, sure.
Yeah, I just don't. And I think based on the tweets I've seen from Music Man Mike, I think I agree with them. We'll see how that goes. I just don't see it as anything other than an opportunity for anti-SJWs to dunk on people. I think they literally, if you listen to Mythicist Milwaukee interviews trying to defend getting Carl Benjamin there last year, they're totally just looking for attention. They're trying to shock jockey their way.
It's working, but
like I said,
the like mean side of it, I think that's there. Like I think there were people in that leadership that just left because they couldn't handle it. I mean, there even was a conference, I think, earlier this year where it was like the anti-Mythicist Milwaukee. It's like, no, we actually have progressive people in Milwaukee and beer, so come on up. You know?
Yeah, Brew City benefit. I mean, it's really that attention does get them money. Like I said, that attention will get people far. Peter Coffin, by the way, is a YouTuber who lives off that message, and I think they have a lot to say that's valuable on that. But they'll do that all under the veneer of skepticism. And when you actually look at mainstream non-internet based skeptic culture, you won't see anything like that anywhere in between. People like Michael Marshall, who have organized QED, lives something like 20 minutes away from Swindon, where Carl Benjamin is, had never heard of that guy until Mythicist Milwaukee. People like the Merseyside Skeptic Societies don't associate with edgelords. You don't see edgelords actively doing things like food banks, like something like PastaCon does. You don't see you never see edgelords organizing in real life. It's maybe to see a talk by Carl Benjamin. You never actually see them gather.
Get Tommy Robinson out of jail.
You never actually see them mobilizing for systemic causes or social issues, which is to our benefit. But you also don't see them using critical thinking to, say, take down pseudoscience. You don't see them protesting homeopathy like the 1024 campaign or whatever. you don't actively see them engaging in science communication, with a few minor exceptions like Thunderfoot, and that kind of reveals what the game is. It's not to engage the world with a critical eye. It's to be inflammatory. It's to make yourself look smart, and it's not really any sort of consistent or foundational philosophy that actually makes the world a better place.
Well, what fun would that be? I forgot to ask you about this before, but this is a question I try to ask my guests now that I don't think I asked the last time you're on. Do you have a joke?
Ooh, do I have a joke? Okay, why did the plane crash?
Why?
Because the pilot was a loaf of bread.
Okay.
That's my joke. It's one of my favorite jokes.
He's Jerb the Humanist. Now, where do people find you on the webs?
Yeah, so please check out my videos. Subscribe to my channel on YouTube. It is Jerb, Jerb, Jerb the Humanist on YouTube, and you can find me on Twitter at Jerb the Humanist. I'm sort of in audience building mode right now, so thanks for letting me spread my message, and I encourage people to check that stuff out. And don't listen to the SJW Circle Jerk, which you can probably find on any podcatcher you have. So, yep.
And I too am still in audience building mode. Thank you for listening to the Zachrilege cast. We will be back next week, and I will be in sunny Asheville this weekend drinking with Jim Dobler, and that'll be fun.
All right. I wish you the best, and send the Doblers my love.
Will do.